At my daughter's funeral, her husband threw me out of the house. I'm Genevieve Hartwell, 73 years old. What happened next changed everything. Picture this, your only child just died from cancer at 38. You're standing in the reception hall, grieving, and your son-in-law looks you in the eye and says, "Stop crying, pack your bags, and get out now." He called me a manipulative leech. In front of everyone. At my Lily's funeral. But here's what Damien didn't know, the bag I picked up was already packed. The smile I gave him wasn't weakness. It was the beginning of his end. Hello everyone, before we continue, make sure you're already subscribed to the channel, and write in the comments, where are you watching this video from? We love knowing how far our stories are reaching. If you're new here, hit subscribe. I share stories about quiet strength in the face of cruelty. And trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. Because what Damien discovered 3 days later taught him that underestimating a grieving mother can cost you everything. Let me start from the beginning. The signs were there all along. I just didn't realize my daughter was preparing for war. When Lily died 2 weeks ago after a brutal 6-month battle with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, Damien immediately positioned himself as the grieving widower who'd lost everything. The funeral was held at Riverside Memorial in Cold Spring, Minnesota, a small town where everyone knows everyone's business. Damien stood at the entrance like he owned the place, shaking hands, accepting condolences with practiced sorrow. He wore an expensive black suit I'd never seen before, and his eyes were dry. Not a single tear. I stood near the casket, my hand on the polished wood, whispering goodbye to my baby girl. People approached with kind words, touching my shoulder, offering prayers. That's when Damien appeared beside me. "Genevieve, we need to talk," he said, his voice cold despite the warm tone. He gripped my elbow and steered me toward the back hallway, away from the mourners. His fingers dug into my arm hard enough to bruise. Once we were alone, his mask dropped completely. "I've tolerated you long enough," he hissed. "Stop crying. Pack your bags. Get out of my house now." His house. The audacity nearly knocked the breath from my lungs. But I didn't argue. I didn't cry harder. I didn't demand an explanation. Instead, I looked at him, really looked at him, and something calm settled over me like a winter frost. I remembered Lily's final words in the hospital 3 nights before she died. "Mom, when I'm gone, he will hurt you. Don't fight him. Just leave. I've already taken care of everything." I thought of the overnight bag she'd had her best friend Cora deliver to the funeral home that morning. The bag with the purple ribbon tied to the handle. The one I'd tucked in the coat closet without opening. I gave Damien a small, sad smile. "Of course," I said softly. I walked past the mourners, past the people who'd known Lily since she was a child, past the photograph of my daughter's beautiful face. I retrieved the purple ribboned bag from the coat closet. Damien watched from across the room, triumph gleaming in his eyes. I didn't look back. I walked out of that funeral home into the November cold, got into my car, and drove away. Damien thought he'd won. He had no idea the game had just begun. 3 nights before Lily died, she made me promise something that seemed impossible. I was sitting beside her hospital bed at North Memorial, watching machines breathe for her, when she suddenly gripped my hand with surprising strength. Her eyes opened, those same hazel eyes she'd inherited from her father, and locked onto mine. "Mom," she whispered, her voice raspy from the tubes. "Listen carefully. I don't have much time." The heart monitor beeped steadily, marking moments I knew were numbered. I leaned closer, tears already streaming down my face. "Damien will hurt you after I'm gone," Lily continued, struggling for each word. "He's been planning it." I've heard him on phone calls. He thinks everything's his now, the house, the money, all of it. He's going to throw you out. I started to protest, to say Damien wouldn't dare, but she squeezed my hand harder. Mom, please. I've known what he really is for 2 years. The affairs, the lies, the financial manipulation. I stayed because I was fighting cancer and needed stability. But I wasn't idle. She told me she'd spent the last 18 months working with her lawyer, Sienna Blackwood, restructuring everything while Damien was too busy with his mistress to notice. There's a bag, Lily said. Purple ribbon. Cora will bring it to the funeral. When he tells you to leave, and he will, don't fight. Just take the bag and go. Everything you need is inside. Instructions, documents, keys. Follow them exactly. Trust me, Mom. I've laid a trap he'll never see coming. Her breathing became labored, and nurses rushed in. That was the last real conversation we had. Now, sitting in my car outside the budget and on Highway 10, I finally opened that bag. Inside was a thick manila envelope marked Red First in Lily's handwriting. My hands trembled as I broke the seal. The letter inside was dated 3 months ago, written in my daughter's careful script despite the pain she must have been in. Dear Mom, if you're reading this, I'm gone and Damien has shown his true colors. Don't be afraid. Every move has been calculated. I'm going to tell you something that will shock you. Damien doesn't know that our house, the one he thinks he inherited, was never in our joint names. 2 years ago, when I first suspected his affair, I used a legal loophole. Dad's life insurance money that bought that house? I had Sienna create an irrevocable trust with you as the beneficiary and trustee. The house title transferred to the trust last year. Damien is about to discover he's living in your house, not his. But that's just the beginning. Keep reading. Follow every instruction. In 3 days, he'll come looking for money he thinks exists. The letter continued for 6 pages, detailing a plan so intricate, so perfectly designed, it took my breath away. Lily had documented everything, his affairs with a woman named Kendra from his office, his secret credit cards, his plan to drain their joint accounts the moment she died. She'd quietly moved money, restructured assets, gathered evidence. The final paragraph made me cry. Mom, you raised me to be strong. You taught me that quiet women aren't weak women. They're strategic. Watch what happens when a quiet woman has time to plan. I love you. Make him pay. I sat in that parking lot until dark, reading and rereading my daughter's final gift to me. She hadn't just protected me. She'd armed me. The bag contained a bank key, a flash drive, contact information for Sienna, and a prepaid phone with specific instructions. Tomorrow, Damien would discover the first problem. In 3 days, his world would begin crumbling. And I would be the one smiling then. Not because I'm cruel, but because my daughter taught me that justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Damien discovered the first problem on Monday morning, 3 days after the funeral. I know because Lily's best friend Cora called me at the budget inn, barely containing her laughter. Genevieve, you won't believe what just happened. Damien showed up at First National Bank trying to withdraw money from his and Lily's joint investment account. The one with $480,000 in it. The manager told him the account was closed 4 months ago. He completely lost it in the lobby, screaming about theft and lawyers. Security had to escort him out. I sat on the edge of the lumpy motel bed, holding the phone with shaking hands. Lily's instructions had been specific. Day 3, he discovers the money is gone. Don't contact him. Let him spiral. I could picture Damien's face, that handsome, charming facade cracking to reveal the rage underneath. He'd probably punched a wall. He'd probably called his lawyer immediately. He'd probably torn the house apart looking for bank statements. Problem 3, as Lily had labeled it in her notes, was now in motion. The money he'd been counting on had vanished into thin air. What Damien didn't know was that Lily had liquidated that account in June, right after her diagnosis turned terminal. She'd moved every penny into a private account at a different bank, Riverside Community Credit Union, under the trust's name. The account he had no access to. The account controlled by me. Lily's notes explained her reasoning. Damien married me for money. Dad's construction business left me comfortable. When he realizes that money is gone, he'll panic. Panic makes people sloppy. We need him sloppy. By Tuesday, Cora reported that Damien had hired Mitchell Sanders, an attorney from Minneapolis known for aggressive tactics. By Wednesday, he'd filed paperwork demanding access to all of Lily's financial records. By Thursday, he discovered the second problem: there was a safe deposit box at Riverside Community Bank that he knew nothing about. Lily's will, filed with the county, mentioned it specifically. Box 447. Contents to be released only to Genevieve Hartwell. Sienna called me that afternoon. He's demanding to know what's in that box. His lawyer is threatening legal action. Let him threaten, I said, surprised by the steel in my own voice. I was following Lily's script exactly. Day 7, visit the safe deposit box. Retrieve the evidence. Prepare for confrontation. I drove to Riverside Community Bank on Friday morning, November 15th. The manager, a kind woman named Patricia who'd known Lily since childhood, led me to the vault. My hands trembled as I turned the key. Inside the narrow metal box was a thick accordion folder, a laptop, and a small jewelry box. I carried everything to a private viewing room. The accordion folder contained hell. Printed emails between Damien and Kendra spanning 18 months. Explicit text messages. Hotel receipts charged to credit cards Lily had discovered. Bank statements showing Damien had opened secret accounts and was funneling money into them, money from the construction company Lily's father had built, where Damien worked as CFO. He'd been embezzling. Slowly, carefully, but consistently. Over $200,000 in 3 years. My daughter had documented every transaction, every theft, every lie. And she'd kept it all secret, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Want to know what happened when Damien came looking for that money? Don't go anywhere, the confrontation will leave you speechless. But first, if you're enjoying this story, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, we love hearing from you. Now, let's get back to how this all unfolded. The laptop in the safe deposit box changed everything. I opened it in Patricia's private viewing room, my fingers clumsy on the keyboard. No password required, Lily had left it unlocked for me. A single folder sat on the desktop labeled "For Mom, watch this first." Inside was a video file dated September 18th, exactly 6 weeks before she died. I clicked play, and my daughter's face filled the screen. She looked so thin, so tired, but her eyes burned with determination. "Hi Mom," the video began. "If you're watching this, everything is going according to plan. I need you to understand why I did what I did. 2 years ago, I came home early from a doctor's appointment and heard Damien on the phone in his office. He was talking to Kendra, laughing about how easy it was to fool me. He said, once the old lady kicks it and Lily gets her inheritance, we're set for life. Then when Lily eventually goes, and let's be honest, she's not exactly exciting anymore, everything transfers to me. The house, the business shares, everything." Lily paused on the video, composing herself. "He was planning my death, Mom. Not actively killing me, but anticipating it, celebrating it. I got sick 4 months later with cancer. And I realized he was getting exactly what he wanted. So I decided to make sure his dreams turned into nightmares. I hired a forensic accountant. That's when I discovered the embezzling. Damien has been stealing from Dad's company, the company that's technically mine through the trust Dad set up, for 3 years. He thought I was too sick to notice. He was wrong. The video continued for 28 minutes. Lily explained everything, how she'd worked with Sienna to restructure the trust, making me the sole trustee and beneficiary. How the house, purchased with her father's life insurance money 15 years ago, had been quietly transferred into the trust using a legal provision for terminal illness estate planning. How she'd moved every liquid asset into accounts Damien couldn't touch. How she'd documented his affairs, his thefts, his plans. The life insurance policy he thinks will pay him $150,000? I changed the beneficiary to the trust. To you, Mom. He gets nothing. But the final revelation was the most devastating. In the folder labeled evidence, you'll find proof that Damien has been working with Kendra to hide assets in offshore accounts. They plan to drain the company the moment I died and disappear. I have emails, bank transfers, everything. It's not just marital infidelity, Mom. It's criminal fraud. Financial elder abuse, since some of that money belongs to company shareholders, including Grandma Rose's estate. I've already sent copies to the district attorney's office, time to arrive 1 week after my death. By the time you watch this, the investigation is already beginning. I sat in that small room, tears streaming down my face, watching my dying daughter orchestrate justice from beyond the grave. She'd spent her final months not just fighting cancer, but building an inescapable trap. Don't feel guilty for what's about to happen, Lily said, as if reading my mind. Damien made his choices. You taught me that we don't have to be loud to be powerful. We just have to be patient. I love you, Mom. Finish what I started. The video ended with her blowing a kiss to the camera. I spent 3 hours in that room, reading through every document. The evidence was overwhelming, meticulously organized, legally bulletproof. Lily had even included a diary, 2 years of handwritten entries documenting Damien's emotional abuse, his manipulation, his financial control. Entries about him forbidding her to tell me about the cancer until she was stage 4 because your mother will just make everything about herself. Entries about him bringing Kendra to their house while Lily was hospitalized. My hands shook with rage. My quiet, kind daughter had endured hell while planning her revenge. And now it was my turn to execute it. On November 18th, exactly 10 days after the funeral, Damien discovered the third problem. Sienna called me that morning with barely suppressed glee in her voice. Genevieve, Damien just received a certified letter from my office informing him that the house at 847 Birchwood Lane is owned by the Lily Hartwell Memorial Trust, and he is currently an unauthorized occupant. He has 30 days to vacate or begin paying fair market rent of $2,800 per month. His lawyer called me screaming. It was glorious. I was staying with Cora in her small apartment above the bookstore she owned in downtown Cold Spring. We'd been friends since Lily was born, and she'd insisted I stay with her instead of the motel. How did he react? I asked, pouring coffee with hands that no longer trembled. I'd spent the weekend studying Lily's instructions, preparing for each phase of the plan. My grief had transformed into something harder, sharper. Purpose. According to his lawyer, he's claiming the house was marital property. He's demanding proof. So I'm sending him the trust documents, the deed, and the title transfer records. All legally filed and recorded. What made this particularly devastating for Damien was timing. He'd already quit his job at Hartwell Construction the day after the funeral, assuming he'd inherited enough money to live comfortably while he and Kendra started their new life. He told the board of directors, which included my late husband's brother, Julian, that he needed time to grieve. Instead, he'd been planning his exit with money he thought was his. Now, suddenly, he had no income, no savings he could access, and a 30-day eviction notice for a house he believed he owned. Cora showed me the Facebook posts that started appearing that week. Damien had begun a campaign, painting himself as the victim of a cruel mother-in-law trying to steal his inheritance while he grieved. Lily would be ashamed of her mother's greed, one post read. After everything I did for that family, this is how I'm treated. Some people have no respect for the dead. The comments section filled with sympathy from people who didn't know the truth. His church friends, his gym buddies, neighbors who only saw the charming version of Damien. It made my blood boil. But Lily had anticipated this too. In her instructions, Day 12 was labeled the public pivot. I called Sienna and Julian for a meeting. We gathered at Hartwell Construction's main office, a modest building my husband had built 30 years ago. Julian, now 68 and semi-retired, had been suspicious of Damien for years but had no proof of wrongdoing. When I showed him the forensic accountant's report detailing the embezzlement, his face turned purple with rage. $247,000 over 3 years? That son of a bitch was stealing from his own wife's family? He was stealing from shareholders, which includes the estate of your mother, Julian, Sienna explained. Rose's estate owns 20% of this company. Damien's theft constitutes elder financial abuse in addition to embezzlement and fraud. The district attorney received my evidence packet last Friday. They're opening a formal investigation. We're meeting with them on Tuesday. Julian stood up, paced to the window, stared out at the construction yard where my husband had spent 40 years building a legacy. That man stood at my niece's funeral and cried. I hugged him. I told him he was still family. And all along, he was counting the money, I finished quietly. Lily knew. She spent her last months making sure he'd face consequences. Now we finish what she started. We agreed on a strategy: remain quiet publicly, let Damien's social media rants continue, let him dig himself deeper. Meanwhile, we'd prepare for the legal confrontation that was coming. Because Phase 4 of Lily's plan was the most dramatic, the day of reckoning. When Damien would finally understand that my quiet daughter had orchestrated his complete destruction. And I would be there to watch it happen. This is where everything starts to unravel for Damien, and trust me, you won't believe what happens next. If you're invested in this story, do me a favor, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next part. Damien came looking for me on November 22nd. I was in Cora's bookstore, helping her organize the winter clearance section, when the bell above the door chimed violently. He stood in the entrance, disheveled in a way I'd never seen. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his hair uncombed, dark circles under bloodshot eyes. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. Genevieve, he snarled, not caring that 3 customers were browsing nearby. We need to talk. Now. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides. Cora stepped between us immediately, all 5 feet 2 inches of protective fury. You need to leave, Damien. Right now. But I touched her shoulder gently. This moment was in Lily's plan. Day 14, he will confront you publicly when he realizes he's trapped. Stay calm. Don't engage emotionally. Let him reveal himself. It's okay, Cora. We can talk in the back office. I led him through the store, feeling the curious eyes of customers following us. Once in the small office, Damien slammed the door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. What the hell have you done? He shouted. The bank accounts are empty. The house isn't mine. My lawyer says there's some trust one never knew about. And now there are district attorney investigators calling me about financial discrepancies at the company? This is you, isn't it? You're trying to destroy me because you never thought I was good enough for Lily. You bitter, jealous old woman. Spit flew from his mouth. The mask had completely fallen. This was the real Damien, the one Lily had lived with, the one she'd hidden from me. I sat down in Cora's desk chair and looked at him calmly. I haven't done anything, Damien. Lily did. His face went blank with confusion. What are you talking about? I reached into my purse and pulled out a USB drive, a copy of the one from the safe deposit box. Everything on here. The evidence of your affairs with Kendra Patterson. The embezzlement from Hartwell Construction. The offshore accounts you two set up. The emails planning to drain the company. Lily found it all. She documented everything. And she made sure that when she died, the truth would come out. The color drained from his face. He grabbed the edge of the desk to steady himself. That's impossible. Lily was sick. She was barely conscious toward the end. She couldn't have, she had 6 months, I interrupted. 6 months of knowing she was dying. 6 months of watching you pretend to care while planning your future with another woman. 6 months of being underestimated by a man who thought she was too weak to fight back. You have no idea how strong my daughter was. I stood up, and despite him being 8 inches taller, I felt like I towered over him. The house you're living in? It belongs to a trust one control. The money you thought you'd inherit? Already transferred. The life insurance policy? I'm the beneficiary. And that $247,000 you stole from the company? The DA has all the evidence. Lily sent it to them from beyond the grave. You played a game with a dying woman and somehow thought you'd win. Damien's legs seemed to give out. He sat down hard on a storage box, his head in his hands. I loved her, he whispered. It was so pathetic I almost laughed. You loved her money, I corrected. You loved the life she provided. You loved the business connections, the house, the reputation. But you never loved Lily. And she knew it. That's why she made sure you'd lose everything. I opened the office door, signaling the conversation was over. You have 23 days to move out of my house. I suggest you use that time to find a good criminal attorney. The one you have now is about to be very busy. Damien looked up at me with such hatred it should have frightened me. But I just smiled, the same sad smile I'd given him at the funeral. And walked away. The meeting with District Attorney Rachel Thornton happened on November 26 in her office at the Stearns County Courthouse. Sienna and I sat across from her and 2 investigators, a conference table covered in organized folders. Rachel was in her mid-40s, sharp-eyed and no-nonsense, with a reputation for prosecuting white-collar crime aggressively. She opened the meeting by expressing condolences for Lily's death, then got straight to business. Mrs. Hartwell, the evidence your daughter compiled is some of the most thorough documentation I've seen in a case like this. Let's review what we have. The first folder contained the embezzlement evidence. Over 3 years, Damien had created fake vendor accounts, approved payments to shell companies he controlled, and skimmed money from construction project budgets. The forensic accountant Lily had hired, a woman named Portia Chin from Minneapolis, had traced every transaction. Total theft, $247,318, Rachel read. All deposited into accounts at Cayman National Bank under the name of a Delaware LLC called Redwood Holdings. Your son-in-law was quite sophisticated. Unfortunately for him, your daughter was more sophisticated. One investigator whistled low. She got bank statements from the Caymans? Sienna nodded. Lily had Damien's computer passwords. He kept everything in a cloud storage folder he thought was encrypted. She hired a tech specialist who retrieved everything legally through her own computer. It was marital property, technically accessible to her. We have 3 years of financial records. The second folder contained evidence of Damien and Kendra's affair, but more importantly, their plan to liquidate company assets. Emails discussing which equipment to sell, which clients to poach, how to transfer intellectual property to a competitor. This goes beyond adultery, Rachel said. This is conspiracy to commit corporate theft and fraud. The third folder was Lily's diary. Rachel read selected passages aloud, her voice tight with anger. April 3rd, Damien told me today that I'm being dramatic about the cancer treatment. He said I'm using my illness to manipulate him into staying home instead of traveling for work. He left for Milwaukee anyway. I later found receipts showing he stayed at the Hilton, the same hotel where Kendra was attending a conference. Another entry, May 19th, overheard Damien on phone telling someone, probably his lawyer, asking about spousal inheritance in cases where the wife has terminal illness. He was researching how soon he could access funds. One passage made me cry. June 12th, Mom visited today. She cried when she saw how thin I've gotten. I wanted to tell her everything about Damien, but I can't burden her with this. Not yet. Instead, I'm making sure she'll be protected after I'm gone. I called Sienna. We're restructuring everything. If Damien thinks he's getting a windfall from my death, he's going to learn what real loss feels like. I'm my mother's daughter. We don't fight loud. We fight smart. Rachel closed the diary gently, reverently. Your daughter was remarkable, Mrs. Hartwell. The final piece of evidence was the video confession. Rachel played it on her laptop, and we all watched Lily explain everything in her own words, the discovery of the affair, the embezzlement, the offshore accounts, the plan to destroy the company. She named dates, amounts, account numbers. It was devastating. When the video ended, one of the investigators was wiping his eyes. This is airtight, Rachel said. We'll be filing charges within the week. Embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy, elder financial abuse. Rose Hartwell's estate was impacted by his theft. We're looking at felony charges carrying 10 to 15 years potential prison time. What about Kendra Patterson? I asked. Rachel smiled grimly. She's been interviewed twice. She's cooperating fully, trying to minimize her exposure. She claims Damien told her the offshore accounts were legitimate business investments. She's turning on him fast. Sienna added, and the civil suit from Hartwell Construction will bankrupt whatever assets he might still have. Julian is filing next week. As we left the courthouse, I felt something I hadn't felt since Lily died, hope. Not happiness, I'd never be happy again without my daughter. But hope that justice would be served. That Lily's final act would not be in vain. Damien's world is crumbling, and it's only going to get worse. If this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, make sure you're subscribed and hit that like button. Drop a comment letting us know what you think should happen to Damien. We love reading your thoughts. Now let's see how this all ends. They arrested Damien on December 3rd at 6:47 in the morning. I know because Cora and I were parked across the street from 847, Birchwood Lane, sipping coffee in her car, watching. Lily's instructions had been specific about this too. When they arrest him, be there. Not to gloat, but to bear witness. To see justice happen for both of us. 2 unmarked police cars pulled up quietly, followed by Rachel Thornton's sedan. 6 officers approached the house, and I watched through the morning darkness as they knocked on the door that had once welcomed me. Damien answered in pajama pants and a t-shirt, his hair sticking up. Even from across the street, I could see the confusion on his face turn to panic as Rachel showed him the warrant. They cuffed him on the front porch, the porch where Lily and I had planted tulips together the spring before she got sick. Neighbors emerged from their houses, drawn by the commotion. Mrs. Chin from next door, holding her robe closed against the cold. The Kowalski family from the corner, teenagers recording everything on their phones. Damien's face flushed red as officers led him to the squad car. What made the moment surreal was remembering standing in that same house 12 years ago when Lily married him. She'd been so happy, so convinced she'd found a partner. I'd had reservations, something about his smile never reached his eyes, but I'd kept quiet because she loved him. Now I wondered if staying quiet had been the wrong choice. If I'd spoken up then, would she have listened? Would she have been spared years of manipulation and abuse? Cora seemed to read my mind. You can't think like that, General Lily made her own choices. And in the end, she made the right one. The police searched the house for 2 hours, emerging with boxes of documents, Damien's laptop, file folders. One officer carried out a framed photograph of Lily, her senior portrait from college, radiant and full of life. It felt wrong seeing her image being treated as evidence in her own husband's prosecution. But then I remembered her video, her strength, her determination to make him pay. This was what she'd wanted. This was her victory. The crowd of neighbors had grown to nearly 20 people, all whispering and speculating. I heard fragments. I always thought something was off about him. Poor Lily, dealing with that while she was sick. Rachel Thornton emerged last, speaking briefly to the lead detective before scanning the street. Her eyes found Cora's car, found me sitting in the passenger seat. She walked over, and I rolled down the window. Mrs. Hartwell. I thought you might be here. Her tone was kind, understanding. He's being charged with 6 counts of embezzlement, 3 counts of fraud, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit theft, and 1 count of elder financial abuse. Bail will be set this afternoon, but given the amount of money involved in the offshore accounts, we're arguing he's a flight risk. Will he go to prison? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Rachel nodded. With this much evidence? Almost certainly. Your daughter built an irrefutable case. Every transaction documented, every communication preserved. His lawyer is going to advise him to take a plea deal. Trials are unpredictable, but paper trails don't lie. He's looking at 8 to 12 years minimum. She paused. I want you to know, I've been a prosecutor for 19 years, and I've never seen anything like what your daughter did. She was dying and still managed to outthink, outplan, and outmaneuver a man who underestimated her. She's a hero. I watched the squad car drive away with Damien in the back seat, his head visible through the window. 25 days ago, he'd stood at my daughter's funeral and told me to get out of his house. He'd smiled with triumph, certain he'd won. He'd celebrated his freedom before she was even buried. Now he was the one leaving, heading toward a cell. Cora started the car. Where to? She asked. I looked at the house one more time, the house that was now mine, the house where my daughter had lived and suffered and planned. Home, I said. I'm going home. Moving back into 847, Birchwood Lane felt strange. The house was exactly as Lily had left it, filled with her choices, the pale blue paint she'd picked for the living room, the kitchen backsplash we'd installed together, the garden she'd loved. But Damien's presence lingered like smoke. His clothes still hung in the master bedroom closet. His cologne smell clung to the bathroom. His mail piled up on the counter. I spent the first 3 days methodically erasing him, donating his clothes to charity, boxing his personal items for his lawyer to collect, scrubbing every surface. Cora helped me sort through Lily's belongings, the task I'd been avoiding. We packed her clothes carefully, the scarves she'd collected from travel, the vintage dresses from estate sales, the worn Michigan State sweatshirt she'd lived in during chemo. I kept that sweatshirt, unable to let it go. In her nightstand, I found a second letter addressed to me, dated just a week before she died. Dear Mom, if you're reading this, you've survived the hardest parts. Damien is gone. Justice is happening. Now comes the hardest task, living. Don't let grief consume you. I need you to do something for me. The letter explained that Lily had left instructions with Sienna to establish a foundation in her name using the money from the liquidated accounts and the life insurance policy. I want to help other women who are trapped in marriages with financial abuse, who feel too sick or too scared to leave, who need resources to escape. Use the money, all $680,000, to create something that will outlive both of us. Make my death mean something beyond just punishing Damien. Turn this pain into purpose. Promise me, Mom. I sat on her bed, holding that letter, and cried until I had nothing left. The legal proceedings moved forward with brutal efficiency. Damien's bail was set at $500,000, which he couldn't make. He sat in county jail while his overworked public defender, his expensive private attorney had dropped him once the retainer money ran out, tried to negotiate a plea. Julian filed a civil suit on behalf of Hartwell Construction, seeking restitution plus damages. Kendra Patterson, faced with potential conspiracy charges, signed an affidavit detailing everything she knew about Damien's schemes. His world collapsed completely in the span of 6 weeks. On December 20th, Damien accepted a plea agreement, 8 years in state prison, full restitution of $247,318 plus interest, and permanent surrender of his shares in Hartwell Construction. Rachel called me personally to deliver the news. He'll be eligible for parole after serving 60% of his sentence, but with restitution attached, his wages will be garnished for decades. Financially, he'll never recover. I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no vindication. Just exhaustion. Lily had warned me about this too, in another letter, revenge doesn't heal grief, Mom. It just gives you something to do while you process it. When it's over, you'll still miss me. That's okay. The community response was divided and ugly. Some people rallied around me, apologizing for believing Damien's social media campaign, bringing casseroles and condolences. Others whispered that I'd been cruel, that Lily had been vindictive, that we'd destroyed a grieving man. Mrs. Patterson from church actually told me Lily always was manipulative, even as a child. I'm not surprised she'd orchestrate something this vengeful from the grave. I stopped attending services after that. Cora said I was better off. People who defend abusers tell you everything you need to know about their character, she said. Christmas came and went in a blur of gray days and silent nights. I decorated the house because Lily would have wanted it, the tree in the corner where we'd always put it, the stockings hung by the fireplace, the ceramic nativity set my mother had given me 40 years ago. But sitting alone in that decorated house on Christmas Eve, I finally broke. I called Sienna sobbing, unable to breathe through the grief. She drove over at midnight, held me while I cried, and stayed until morning. You're allowed to fall apart, she said. You've been strong for months. You earned this breakdown. On February 14th, Lily's birthday, I stood in front of 40 people in the community center conference room and announced the establishment of the Lily Hartwell Freedom Foundation. The mission, providing financial resources, legal assistance, and emergency housing for individuals escaping marriages involving financial abuse or coercive control. The funding, $680,000 from Lily's estate, plus ongoing donations from Hartwell Construction's annual charity allocation. Sienna served as board president. Julian and Cora joined as board members. Rachel Thornton agreed to serve as legal advisor. We were making something beautiful from something broken. The first person we helped was a 32-year-old woman named Marissa whose husband had controlled every dollar, every credit card, every bank account for 9 years. She'd left with her 2 children and nothing else, no money, no job, nowhere to go. The foundation paid her security deposit and first month's rent on an apartment, connected her with a divorce attorney who worked pro bono, and enrolled her in a job training program. When she came to thank me, crying in my arms, I understood what Lily had meant. This was how we turned pain into purpose. By April, we'd helped 6 women and 1 man escape abusive financial situations. By June, we'd expanded services to include credit repair assistance and financial literacy classes. By September, we'd partnered with 3 regional domestic violence shelters to provide specialized support. The work consumed me in the best way: 16-hour days, constant meetings, fundraising events, grant applications. I fell into bed exhausted every night, but it was the exhaustion of purpose, not grief. I still missed Lily with every breath, but now I was doing something about it. I was finishing what she'd started. Damien sent a letter from prison in August, forwarded through his lawyer. I debated throwing it away unopened, but curiosity won. The letter was 2 pages of self-pity and blame. He'd been stressed, he'd made mistakes, Lily had overreacted, I had destroyed his life over a marriage dispute. Not once did he apologize. Not once did he acknowledge the pain he'd caused. The final paragraph read, "When I get out, I'll rebuild my life. You and Lily tried to destroy me, but I'm stronger than you think. You haven't won." I read it twice, then fed it into the paper shredder in my office. Because he was wrong. We had won. Not because he was in prison or broke or ruined, though he was all those things. We'd won because Lily had refused to be a silent victim. She'd taken control of her own narrative, protected the people she loved, and created something that would help others long after she was gone. She'd transformed her dying months into a masterclass in quiet strength. And she taught me that grief doesn't have to be passive, that love can be fierce, that justice sometimes requires patience and planning instead of confrontation. On November 8th, exactly 1 year after Lily's funeral, I stood at her grave with Cora, Sienna, Julian, and 15 women the foundation had helped. We each placed a white lily on her headstone. The marker read, Lily Catherine Hartwell, 1986 to 2024. Beloved daughter, quiet warrior, champion of the voiceless. I knelt in the cold grass and whispered, I kept my promise, baby. I finished what you started. And I'm going to keep going. The wind rustled through the cemetery trees, and for just a moment, I could have sworn I heard her laugh, that bright, musical sound I thought I'd never hear again. I still live in the house at 847, Birchwood Lane. Some days are hard, walking past the room that was hers, cooking in the kitchen where we'd made Sunday dinners together. But some days are good, when I'm working on foundation business or meeting with someone we've helped. I've learned that healing isn't linear. Some hours I'm fine, functional, even happy. Other hours I collapse on the couch and sob until my chest aches. Both are okay. Both are part of living after loss. Lily taught me that strength doesn't mean never breaking. It means getting back up every single time. The foundation has helped 43 people as of this month. 43 individuals who escaped situations like Lily's, who were underestimated and controlled and told they were worthless. We've provided over $200,000 in direct assistance, facilitated 17 divorce proceedings, and helped 11 people start new careers. Every thank you letter I receive goes in a binder in my office labeled Lily's Legacy. When grief threatens to drown me, I read those letters and remember why I keep going. Not for revenge. Not for vindication. But for love. For the daughter who taught me that quiet doesn't mean weak, it means strategic. To everyone watching this, if you're in a relationship where someone controls your finances, isolates you from family, or makes you feel worthless, know that you're not alone. There are people who will help you escape. Resources exist. And your abuser's power over you is an illusion that shatters the moment you decide to take it back. Lily understood that. She waited, she planned, and she acted when the time was right. You can too. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for letting me honor my daughter's memory by sharing what she did, not for revenge, but for justice. If this story moved you, I hope you'll subscribe to this channel and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below telling us what Lily's story meant to you, or if you've ever had to find quiet strength in impossible circumstances. Remember, the most powerful response to cruelty isn't always confrontation. Sometimes it's a quiet smile, a packed bag, and a plan that's been months in the making. Thank you for being here. Thank you for bearing witness. And never, ever underestimate a quiet woman with time to think.